Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. I am just letting my fingers kind of thaw out. I've been outside shoveling snow and got a hell of a lot of it lately. Hopefully the weather is actually better in Golden, Colorado, because that is where Scott is from, who has our viewer bike for the week. And Scott went out and got himself a 2023 Breakout to add to his collection. This bike has a stage 1 with Vance and Hines big sweepers. It also has Willie G grips, extended mirrors, custom dynamic LED signals front and rear, and what looks to be 80 grit foot pegs. So it's a nice looking bike, Scott. Thanks for sending it in. And if you want to see your bike in a video, send me an email with a pic and some description of it. My address is in the description below. So I don't usually do videos like this, but a video popped up in my YouTube feed here just recently, and it's from a few months ago, and it's a video called 7 Reasons Harley Davidson is Losing Its Edge, and it is by a YouTuber called Yammie Noob, and I thought it would be interesting to just kind of give a response to that video, being as I am a fan of Harley Davidson. Now, for those of you who don't know who Yammie Noob is, he's been around for quite a while. I actually don't watch much of his stuff, but the odd time. He is a pretty big YouTuber with just about 1.5 million subscribers. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of give him a response, because he seems like he is much more of a sport bike rider and definitely not a fan of HD. So the first reason he found that Harley is losing its touch is based on branding. He finds that Harley is basically just a brand now and not motorcycles. The over-branding of things has caused them to lose its edge, and he feels that Harley Davidson now, because of just that branding, the young people just aren't into a branding company. He went on to say that basically Harley Davidson is just a meme at this point, and that's how the young kids see it. And he really leaned heavy on the fact that Harley Davidson is old and they have unchanging ideas about anything. Now, I do agree that Harley Davidson does over-brand. They've got their name on absolutely everything and anything, whether it really applies to motorcycles or not. But hey, if people are going to buy it, go ahead and do it. But I do take issue with the fact that no young people at all have any interest in Harley Davidsons, because I know from doing this channel, as small as it is, I've heard from a lot of people who are younger who are interested in Harley Davidsons, and not just from North America. Now, the second reason he cites is economic. Basically, he says that young people today are much more disadvantaged, so they can't afford to buy a bike that would be as expensive as a Harley Davidson. He makes the point that the older Harley buyers, which are generally in their 40s and 50s, they are more set in their careers, so they are more able to have that expendable income to go out and buy a toy. And this one I can't argue with. I think he's right there, especially with the cost of living in places like the US, and actually especially in Canada right now. I feel that, yes, that is a big deterrent for a lot of the younger people that want to get out and ride. Harleys are very expensive for a young person to get into. The third point he brings up is brand strategy. Now, he says that basically under the former CEO, before the one we have now, Harley was working on the Rev Max. They were working on the Livewire. They had the fabled Bronx was looking to come out. And now, since Mr. Jochen Zeitz has came in, he did away with the Bronx that a lot of people were looking forward to. He sold off Livewire, is what Yammie Noob says. Anyway, he feels the strategy is wrong because now Jochen Zeitz has looked at more milking the customers they have now. In other words, getting more profit from their customers already by selling less bikes. So more profit for selling less bikes. And he feels, Yammie Noob feels that that is a poor strategy and it's short-sighted. Again, I have to agree with him on the fact that Harley's brand strategy of getting, the more profit out of less bikes, that is a very short-sighted strategy. Harley needs to bring in new younger customers because people like me, quite frankly, aren't getting any younger and eventually are going to die off. Harley needs to replenish that customer base. So if they're just going to cater to people like me, that's going to be short-sighted, and I don't know if Harley is going to be able to actually rectify that. Number 4 is that Harley Davidsons are not good value for money. He basically says that Harley Davidsons are ill-equipped and it makes no financial sense to ever buy a Harley Davidson when you can get a Japanese bike for much cheaper. Now, he really leans very hard into Japanese models. I assume that's mostly what he's into, but he doesn't really, in this point, really say why. Basically, he also leans on the fact that you should not get a loan for a Harley Davidson. And now, while I agree that, hey, there may be better bikes out there for less, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to get a loan on a Harley Davidson. I say if you can afford it, go ahead. But I think he's really missing the point on why people buy Harley Davidsons in the first place. But we'll get to a little more of that later. Now, number 5 is smaller entry model bikes that Harley Davidson does not have any. Now, I want to be specific when I cite some of the things he says here, but basically he says they do not line up with Harley's core values of being big, heavy, and expensive. He also says that any of the models that Harley has overseas that are smaller cc would not make it here simply because they would fail, because Harley buyers would reject a non-American made bike as much as they would reject their transgendered son. So that's a pretty low blow right there. I guess the first thing I would say to this is what constitutes an entry-level bike. Harley did have the 883 Sportster. That's actually what I learned. That was my first Harley. But they do have the 975 Nightster, which I have ridden, and I think that would be a fine bike for an entry-level bike for people to learn on. But I should also point out that people learn on a lot bigger bikes as well. I've had people tell me, hey, I learned on a Fat Boy, no problem. And I would also point out that there's a lot of women who learn on things like Sportsters, Nightsters, bigger bikes like that. So I kind of agree and I kind of don't on that, but I think that Harley still has a model that is small enough that can be an entry-level bike. Number 6, Mr. Noob has to say is that Harleys just do not add up. And again, I want to be sure that I'm kind of quoting what he has to say about this, because he says that when you put a Harley up against another bike in the market, the inadequacies hit you right in the face like a money shot. He went on to mention things like the Bonneville, the Ducati Scrambler, which will not rob you blind. Now, he also goes on to state that Harleys are just incredibly impractical to own. He brings up the fact again that they're heavy. I guess if maybe he could lift a little more weight, maybe they wouldn't be so heavy. He also says that on a Honda, you could virtually ride it underwater. That's how rainproof they are. But while an American-made Harley's electronics would most likely fail if the bike were to get wet. He states that Harleys are not either a functional or a utilitarian machine. It's only for dentists who ride 50 miles on the weekend. Where do I start with this one? I completely disagree whatsoever with what he had to say on this point. Yes, some Harleys are heavy. Maybe he should work out and he could actually move one around. I don't know. He said that they're impractical because you have to back them into your stall at work. Oh my God, that's terrible. I don't know how you're going to do that. I might point out that a lot of women actually do that, you know. I've also rode through plenty of rain and hail. I've had frost all over my bike. I can say that in inclement weather that I've ridden through over the years, I have never had any sort of electrical issue whatsoever with a Harley Davidson. As for Harley bikes not being utilitarian or functional, there are people who use them for their everyday transportation all the time. They take them to work. They ride these bikes. Thousands of people ride these bikes across country every year. They are very functional. They are very utilitarian. But if he doesn't believe me, I guess he can get on a little Bonneville and, take that across country and see how much he likes that. Maybe after that, he might think, a touring model might not be too bad for something like that. And finally, number 7 is the right to repair. And this all stems from Harley voiding your warranty if you were to actually put an aftermarket part on your bike. He feels that Harley Davidson is intentionally putting poor equipment on their bikes, so you have to buy other parts to make them actually run well. Well, the first thing I would say is that putting an aftermarket part on your bike does not immediately void your warranty. Now, if that part can be traced back to the issue your bike has, then yes, they probably will void your warranty. And perhaps Harley isn't the only manufacturer that does that, because I looked at Triumph. He mentioned it earlier. For example, Triumph, their warranty has a condition that states defects caused by faulty adjustment or repairs and alterations performed by a non-authorized Triumph dealer are not covered by this warranty. Defects caused by the use of parts and accessories not authorized by Triumph Motorcycles Limited are not covered by warranty. So that sounds pretty close to what Harley does. And I'm not going to say that I necessarily like it, but hey, if Harley wants to do that, that's business. One other little thing I'd like to point out is that Harley's parts being intentionally poor, things like that, their Screaming Eagle line, even things like that, I'm going to say in Harley's defense, a lot of their parts, things like tuners, exhausts, things like that, they're regulated by the environment regulations. They have to do that. Their hands are tied in situations like that. Now, in the end, old Yammie Noob, he was pretty hard on us Harley Davidson riders, but I'm sure a lot of it is in jest, and I did leave out some of the harsher things he had to say. But I do agree with him on at least a couple points, but I definitely think he's off base on a lot of his thoughts. And I guess that's probably because he is coming from the side of a sport bike rider. He is more for the high performance, smaller, lighter bikes. But I think he leaves out the emotion of what Harley gives to customers like myself. And I'm sorry, bikes like Honda just don't do that for me. And that's just me. That's just my opinion. But quite frankly, could I go out and get a higher performance bike for less than I would pay for my Fat Boy? Yes. But quite frankly, I don't care. I don't need all that high performance. I don't need to go 200 miles an hour. That's fine for some folks. I like to cruise, and I like the look of a Harley. I like the style of a Harley, and I like the sound of a Harley. I like the way it makes me feel. Basing all your decisions purely on economics takes kind of the fun out of it, quite frankly. People buy stuff all the time that they probably shouldn't have, but god damn, it's fun. Anyway, I could always go buy something that looks like shit and sounds like shit, but it's cheaper, but I don't want to do that. And that's just me. But anyway, what do you guys think out there? Am I out to lunch? Is Yammie Noob wrong? Let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear from you. But anyway, that is it for today, folks. Hopefully, like I said, you got better weather than we do. And until the next time, I will see you later.